Hey, what's up, everyone? Kino here. And I just, right before recording this, went to the movie theater and I saw The Boy and The Heron, the new Studio Ghibli film that Hayao Miyazaki has been working on for a long time. I'm actually a big fan of Studio Ghibli, like pretty much everyone else on Earth is. I posted one of my video essays about Kiki's delivery service way before I started working on the Sopranos videos. So I've been a fan of Studio Ghibli movies for a long time, and I was really excited to see this movie because it's one that he's been working on for a very long time. I think uh, the film has been in production for at least like 7 years or something like that. It's the most expensive movie he's worked on, like in terms of like the longest it took to make movie he's ever done before. And I wanted to share my reaction to it with all of you. So if you just want a quick recommendation, I definitely recommend going to see it. Like, Studio Ghibli movies are always worth it just as like a cinematic experience. Like, the animation is beautiful, the music's beautiful, all of that is great. I actually do have criticisms of the film. I think it's one of the weaker ones overall, but even like a weak Studio Ghibli film is worth watching in my mind. It's like I would definitely recommend seeing it. If you like that kind of animation style, you'll just be entertained for the 2 hour runtime. But I wanted to share my thoughts with it because there was a lot. I was like, I left the theater thinking like, really, is that the whole movie? I just felt a little confused by it, but great animation as always. One of the most beautiful, like it might be the most beautiful of all of his films in terms of like the animation, the imagery, the music. I don't know if it's the best music overall, but it definitely has its own very striking thematic score to it that I thought was fantastic. And there's nothing like bad about the film. There's nothing I was like, oh, that sucks. It's more so it's just like I don't know what I'm supposed to kind of come away from this film thinking. And apparently I'm not the only one who thinks that way, but I will be talking spoilers in this, so if you haven't seen it, I won't be talking huge spoilers, but I will be talking about some elements from the film overall and how they relate to my thoughts on it. So, real quick summary. The film is about this boy, Mahito, whose mother dies in a fire, and then he and his father move to the countryside. It's set during World War II. And he meets his new stepmother, who is the younger sister of his mother, so it's his aunt. They don't necessarily say that up front, which I was kind of it wasn't like a big deal, but I was just like, I don't know why they wait till later in the movie to kind of announce that, when it kind of should be like, hey, your mother was my, like, that should be something they talk about really up front. But regardless, he goes and he moves in with them in their like countryside house, and this house is like magical. There was something that happened there, like the uncle, like one of their great ancestors or something, went insane and disappeared in this tower, and then the tower got shut down, and there's these like weird old ladies living there, and they know that weird stuff happens in the house. And there's this heron, which is a bird, which is a water bird, that can talk, and he like tells Mahito that his mother is waiting for him somewhere. And then the stepmom, Natsuko, it's the sister of his mom who's now married to the father. She's pregnant with his new brother, basically, and she disappears, and the son has to go looking for the mother. And he goes into the world within the tower and searches for her. He encounters a bunch of weird magic stuff. Works with the heron. Him and the heron kind of start out as enemies, and then they become friends. Meets his mother in that world, which the other side of the world is like, it's not really the afterlife per se. It kind of seemed like it was the afterlife for a little bit, but it turns out it's the great uncle who built the tower and stuff was able to create his own like universe, his own world, and he wants Mahito to take over the world for him, but Mahito just wants to recover his stepmom and bring her back to the world. He eventually he meets his mother there, who's like a goddess in that world. She's a young girl, like his age. Meets with her. They have this little adventure. They rescue the stepmom, and then they all go back to their world. It is a weird film in terms of like it's hard for me to like even summarize because the film does not feel cohesive, and that was my main problem with it. Like thematically, tonally, story-wise, fantasy-wise, it felt like a bunch of ideas that were slammed together that weren't necessarily tied together by any kind of cohesive narrative strand. If you had to put something on, like if you had to say what the film was about, you could kind of say it's about Mahito's dealing with his mother issues. Again, his mother died, and he's very troubled by that. And then it's also about him, I guess, accepting his new stepmom. The only problem with that is he's not portrayed to be like at the beginning of the film, he doesn't really seem to have any kind of problem with his new stepmom. You would think that the film would be, since he's trying to find her in the other world, you would think he would start the film being like, oh, you're not my real mother, I don't like you and stuff. And then by the end, he would have accepted her and been like, I love you as my new mother. And it seems like they were kind of setting that up, but again, there's nothing at the beginning to suggest that he doesn't like this new stepmom. Maybe you can say that there's a difference between just accepting someone and then like loving them genuinely. But again, there's nothing bad about the main character, Mahito. There's nothing at the beginning that he really needs to change from. I guess you could say maybe it's about his self-acceptance that his mother is now dead, and he's accepted that, he's moved on. He seemed like he was sad about it, but it didn't seem like he was clinging to his mother in an unhealthy way at the beginning. So I just think that Mahito's journey it's not really clear what his journey is. Like, unlike some other films, and the two other Miyazaki film, or Studio Ghibli films, I should say, that I would compare this film to is, one is Spirited Away, and the other is When Marnie Was There. When Marnie Was There is one of the lesser known Studio Ghibli films, but it's actually one of my favorites. I really like that film. It's this ghost story type thing. It was adapted from an American book from like the 1800s or something. Just like this one too is adapted from an old Japanese novel. Miyazaki tends to adapt like existing novels and stuff for his movies like this. So he didn't originate the story himself, but regardless, it feels like half of each of those movies. It feels like the first half of the movie is When Marnie Was There, which is this very sad, somber, like very dark film almost that I really like. And I was excited because I was like, oh, this is cool. We're gonna get another film that's tonally like When Marnie Was There. But then when he gets into this like the other world, it becomes Spirited Away. And even though Spirited Away had some like semi-dark moments, it was very much like a light-hearted film, like an adventure kind of film that had very positive feelings throughout the whole thing. And that's why I felt tonally the film, it didn't feel cohesive. Like, again, the trailer and stuff and the beginning of the film made it seem like it's going to be this really dark story of like, not necessarily like bad stuff happens, but like, there's this like loneliness, there's this solitude, there's this somberness in When Marnie Was There that I was hoping we would get more of, because I was like, oh man, this is very unique. Even though Studio Ghibli films will occasionally deal with negative emotions, they're almost universally like very positive, uplifting stories. And When Marnie Was There is too, but again, much more on that darker side. And it felt like once they got to that other world, they forgot about that entirely, and it becomes this very like fun, whimsical adventure. but at the same time too, even when it's this fun whimsical adventure, there's this weird incongruity between the happy kind of like visuals and some of the narrative elements. For example, one of the villains, I don't even want to call them villains, but one of the bad guy groups in the other world are these parakeets. Again, it's the uncle brought birds into the world or something to I don't know why he did it, because the uncle is also not portrayed as being a bad guy either, which makes me wonder why these birds are a little bit bad. But either way, there's these parakeets that want to eat the main character, and there's these pelicans too that eat the babies. That again, I described it as like, it seems like this world is death because there's these little like spirits. They look like the little spirits from Princess Mononoke, but they're supposed to float upward and become babies in the real world. And so I was like, wait, is this world death? I don't. But later it's said that this universe is a creation of the uncle. Maybe he can create the universe and it is death in some way, but I don't know. But regardless, there's these birds in there that are shown in a like a kind of negative light in the sense they're kind of villains a little bit, but they're very cute looking, and it's like, why are they the villains? And it's also, they're not particularly malicious. In fact, the pelicans, there's a scene that was like, the pelicans are suffering in this world. The reason they eat the babies is because they have no food. The ocean is cursed or something. And they're only doing it because they were brought into this world and they're suffering and dying. And I was like, well, if the uncle brought them into the world, is that because he's bad or something? But no, not really. I think what they were hinting at was the uncle was not able to make the world perfect, and he wanted Mahito to make the world perfect and harmonious and without malice. And I think one of the reasons Mahito refused to basically stay and control the universe there was because he knew he couldn't make it perfect or so. I don't know. It feels like there's a lot of these weird ideas that are shoved in here that don't play out in a very cohesive way. And that's my biggest problem with the film. That's why I walked away being like, I think in the theater too, it was in a kind of a packed theater, and everyone was like, there wasn't like these cheers of like, oh yay, at the end of the film. It was like, people were looking at each other when it ended. I was like, is that it? It literally just ends too. Like, they get back to the human world, and it's not like Spirited Away where they leave it like an open question of like, did any of that stuff really happen? No, there's evidence that all that stuff happened. It's hinted that he might forget about it in the future. The Heron says that, but they get back. It's confirmed that everything happened. All the parakeets poop on the main characters too. It's kind of cute and funny, but I was also like, wow, we're ending this movie with bird poop on all the main characters. But I don't know. Regardless, they get out of the world, and then it's just like, it cuts to another scene, and it's like, oh, after 2 years we went back to Tokyo, and then it just ends. There's no further scene with Mahito and the mother, the new mother, the stepmother. The father is kind of a character, but they don't do anything with him. Like, they do give him stuff that you would think would play out in the story. He works at this factory. He's kind of rich. I think it's implied he's rich. When Mahito gets into a fight at school, he wants to get revenge for his son, and then when the mother disappears, he grabs a sword and he's like gonna lead the people to go find her. And so it's like it's making it seem like they're trying to make him a character, but like there's no payoff. There's nothing that happens with him. The fight itself was kind of weird too, because I was like, I don't understand why he hit himself in the head with a rock afterwards. I thought they were gonna do something where it was like, he was either going to frame the kids for, like hurting him, or he was going to use it as an excuse not to go to school anymore because he didn't want to go to school or something. But he lies about it too afterwards. And I don't know, maybe it's about hurting yourself because he was in it was like almost like cutting yourself to deal with the pain of losing his mother or something. But if that's what they were going for, it's not clear. So like I said, there's a lot of these little narrative elements that are just sitting there that don't really come together in a cohesive way. And apparently I'm not the only one who felt that way. The grandson of the guy who wrote the book, I'm reading this on Wikipedia right now. He was somewhat bewildered by the film's messages. Like, he didn't know what the film was about either. And I think I'm confident that that's not just me missing something. It's like, no, this is, there's something wrong here. Narratively speaking, this needed another pass to kind of make it a little bit more cohesive. But I think that fundamentally, Miyazaki was probably working on this more as like one to show off the animation skills, because this is the most beautiful Miyazaki film ever made. The scene when he's going into the fire at the beginning to save his mother, and the animation kind of distorts. It's really, really good. And it's very dreamlike. It's a very dreamlike sequence, which I am impressed by that. Again, it has that same kind of feel as like Spirited Away, where again it's almost like living in a dream, and that's very difficult to pull off, and they do it well here. So even though narratively and tonally, I think the film doesn't come together in a meaningful way where I'm like, oh, here's the message. Like even like when Marnie was there, even that's kind of a weird film, but there is a clear message where it was her learning to deal with like loneliness and kind of almost rediscovering her faith in humanity and stuff like that. That was in Spirited Away is the same way. It was about that the main girl kind of coming out of her shell a little bit and not being so shy and reclusive. There's not a clear message of that here. I don't know what Mahito is really, how he's really changed by the end. Again, there's some threads there that could be like, oh, okay, that's the message, but it needed to be reinforced more throughout the story, because again, we just have a bunch of loose threads here rather than they're weaved together in this like really intricate pattern that makes for a great film narratively. But either way, like I said, still a great film to go watch. I definitely would recommend it. It's beautiful. It is an experience. It's pretty funny too at times, so I laughed throughout the film. There's a lot of good humorous moments, but yeah, I definitely think it could have been better, and I think this is the problem when you spend 7 years working on something like this. It just kind of gets lost in the creativity, so to speak. So but either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this reaction. I'll probably have some more coming up here. I'm going to watch some more movies in theaters. There's actually a couple coming out that I do want to go see for once, so you guys have that to look forward to, and stay tuned for more content coming soon.